Hello, everybody. I think we are going to be live soon.
All right, Brett, you ready to go?
Okay. All right. Hey, everyone. My name is Brett Kelley. I'm actually here in at ChartPack, which is our home base here in lovely Western Massachusetts. And we're here with Blick Art Materials. I'm very excited to talk to you about Molotow. It's one of our favorite brands that we get to work with and distribute here in the United States and Canada. You can see we have examples all over the place, but I will also be going into some of the nitty-gritty details, and we'll be giving you as much information as possible to show you how these products are very versatile. They're very resilient. They're very light, fast, reliable, and that way you can incorporate them in your projects going into this year. So yeah, I think we'll go straight into it, I suppose. So as you can see, thanks to technology, I'll be switching between two cameras. So we'll go right back down to the second one, and then I'll show you some of the fun stuff. Actually, you know what? Before we do that, let's talk about Molotow a little bit more. We can introduce you to the company a little bit more. As you can see, this is my first time doing a Facebook Live. However, I do spend a lot of time as an artist. I go to a lot of conventions and museums. Artwork since 2011. So I have a lot of experience, and most of the projects that I've worked with that have and mural projects and stuff do involve Molotow. So I'll be very excited talking to you about this, and I will try not to get too scatterbrained. So Molotow, if you're not familiar, is a street art brand founded in Germany about 20 years ago. It's a fantastic company. It's founded by street artists for street artists. They have a fantastic statement, mission statement. I'm going to check my notes here just to make sure I don't leave any of the important stuff out. But yeah, it specializes in premier writing artist materials, spray paint, street art, and urban art products specifically. The brand, as I said, it is founded by street artists, and it pretty much has a fantastic philosophy that revolves around innovation, quality, responsibility, sustainability, and credibility. So it's one of the many reasons we love working with them, and we're so proud to be able to work with their products. So the big product at hand that we'll be showing is our Molotow One4All paint markers. They have fantastic designs, which I'll go into the delivery system. We'll talk about the colors a little bit, the varying different sizes and the varieties that we have available, and also be taking your questions as I'm going through this. So if you have any questions, feel free to type away in the chat. I have a couple trusted friends, Josh behind the camera and Pam off to the side. So if you have any questions, they will be seeing them and shouting them out at me, especially if I get sidetracked. So let's get to it. Molotow, as I said, is one of my favorite products, and it's not just because I have the shirt and the hat, but actually, let's go down. Now I'll switch the camera. Cool. So, paint markers. One of the reasons why. These are just a few samples right off the bat. I'll be bringing far more out as we get into it. But as you can see here, we have a great example of the different types of millimeter sizes that Molotow markers come in, and a few examples of the type of markings that they make. So very, very simple. They come in a plethora of designs. So we have a double-sided design in case where the ink is all sustained in the beginning, in the middle, that is. And you have a 4 millimeter nib on this one, and you have a 1 millimeter nib on this. So it's really great, so that way you can do your broad strokes on pieces and also get into the details. So, yep, an example. And another one is our 2 millimeter. We do have them that are great. So as you can see, based on the fact that these are fantastic materials, the reason being is because they have the nibs are great in case if you're working for small pieces or large. Most of these you can work on pieces that are several feet large or the size of a piece of paper. The acrylic ink that we use is liquid acrylic. It is a high flow or easy flow system. It is very reliable. It is steadfast, very light fast. It is indoor. It is suitable for indoor and outdoor use. They're very bright. You can see most of the colors from a mile away, and they work well with almost any delivery system. You can actually use them in the paint markers, or you can use them with paint brushes traditionally, or you can use them with airbrushes, which are fantastic. They are that versatile. They are non-toxic. They come in a wide variety of colors. We have a series of traditional colors. We have a series of pastels, metallics. As you can see, this is one of my favorites. The thing I like about our metallics is the fact that sometimes when you have metallic colors, they look very bright, almost like cartoony. With the metallics that Molotow uses, they do have like a sheen, like they look like actual aged metal when you apply them on different surfaces. So speaking of which, I do have a couple examples of such applications. So away we go. So we have a couple. And one of the cool things about Molotow is that they work on a plethora of surfaces. They are what I lovingly refer to as all-purpose and all-surface. They work on canvas, they work on paper, they work on cardboard, they work on glass, they work on ceramic, canvas, as in like fabric or textiles. They are very durable. They're made to last. And yeah, they're probably they definitely are very friendly with most surfaces on glass. I could go on and on, but this is a great example of paint markers in a fine art capacity. This is actually, I'll hoist this up so you can see the details, and I can kind of break this down a little bit. What we have here is a nice little flat canvas, and you can see on here is that the paint markers are everything that is used. The background is actually acrylic. So this actually speaks to Molotow's ability to work very well with other medium. So if you are a mixed media artist, if you work in three-dimensional work, if you are a fine artist and don't necessarily consider yourself to be a street artist, Molotow paint markers actually provide a great resource if you want to expand your art style into whatever it may be, whether it be abstract or more illustrative work. They definitely work. So in this was done using a background wash of Grumbacher raw sienna paint, and this is the paint markers over on top. So as you can see here, one of the details on here is that they really pop, and they are very opaque. You can still do what they like to call wall-to-wall illustration, where you can fill in an area full of color, or you can actually see where you can leave in these spaces that really help add dimension to your painting. This is just kind of like a fun little illustration that I've been toying around with, and I thought it'd be a good example of showing how it might work on fine artwork. So I'll put that off to the side right here.
But we do have a couple of questions.
Oh, fantastic.
Coming through.
Thank you, Pam.
First question from Babs.
Oh.
What is your favorite piece you've done with these markers?
Oh, that is a great question. I made a lot of pieces with using Molotow markers. I would say it's a tough question. I really hate having a favorite piece of artwork, because normally whatever I'm working on is currently my favorite, and then I kind of shove it out the gate. But I would say the most important pieces that I've ever worked on using Molotow paint markers would be a big project that that I was involved in 2014. It was for it was for a series of installation, like pretty much figures. Like they were old like 1800s mannequins. I was working with a client who had commissioned me to paint a bunch of projects for a gigantic, massive steampunk installation in Springfield. And they were called the Hue Machines, and they were very large. They were about the same size as me, and I painted about a half dozen of them. And they were all inspired by great creators of the last 100 years. So there was Jules Verne, we kind of reimagined Jules Verne as a combination of the submarine of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. So he was Jules Verne, the subhuman man. That was a very popular piece, and there was another half dozen of those. Those are done with my friend Bruce Rosenbaum. So yeah, that was probably the most important ones, I would say, that really got me into the museum scene, and they're still around. Yeah, because the paint stuck, the paint stuck, and they're really bright. And I would say a close second, actually, I would say that this one's very important too. I do work with the Make-A-Wish Foundation for the Massachusetts and Rhode Island chapter. And Molotow came in handy where I was working on a mural for a child that in the area. And I made a video game mural that was about, I want to say it was about 10 feet wide by 3 feet tall, if I can vaguely remember the details. So yeah, I would say it's a combination between that series of work that I did with my friend and then that piece that I did with the Make-A-Wish Foundation. It's very near and dear to my heart. So yeah, those are the favorite pieces that I've made with my Molotow artwork. So yeah, we'll go into another one actually. Speaking of more artwork, switching again. So here's a really good example once more of how you can use paint markers in a fine art capacity. This is actually part of our Grumbacher acrylic paper line. One of my favorites. This is some of my favorite paper that I like to work on because it's just as resilient as the paint markers that I use. So as you can see here, this is a little bit softer, a little bit more of a lighter application. But with this piece, sorry, I definitely want to make sure that you can see it, but I also don't want to complicate the camera as it's trying to focus accordingly. So for this one, we used a skin pastel, one of the many different colors that we use, which are phenomenal, which you can use a brush stroke. I'm actually going to work on this a little bit later after I kind of cycle through a few more examples, just that way I can show you in action what it really looks like to be working with these pieces and how you can get the absolute best out of these materials for your fine art needs. But this is a really great example, just kind of showing like, you know, this is a piece that you wouldn't necessarily see in the normal capacity, I would say. It's definitely using the nibs. The nib material is very viscous, but the natural way that paint markers work, which I will show you momentarily, you can create these brush-like strokes that really can help add dimension to your work instead of just coating it in one fell swoop of coating in one fell swoop. So yeah, hopefully that is a fun example. I'll put that off to the side because I'll come back to you later. And yeah, we'll go into this one. Actually, since I brought up the steampunk piece, I did do a lot of artwork in steampunk between 2011 and 2015. This is a really good example that I like to bring out when showing people the capacity for Molotow, because I think a lot of people think when they see paint markers, they go, oh, the colors are really obnoxious, they're very bright. And Molotow do make colors that are super amazing, and they are wonderful in how bright and light fast they are. And they do have bright colors, but they also have a wonderful array of colors that are a little bit darker, colors that can be incorporated more into fine art. Once again, this is a great example of acrylic paint. This is Grumbacher acrylic paint, a combination of titanium white, burnt sienna, raw umber, if I remember correctly. And these are just Molotow white, raw sienna, a couple of the more beige brown colors, and the gold is in here as well. And these are just really great examples to show that you can really get some nice depth. You can blend these colors. You can get them into, shades and regions where you might not anticipate if you're seeing them in just their more illustrative capacity. So yeah, that's actually, so I figured I would use that as well. Definitely a steampunk heavy piece, which is why telling that story reminded me. And actually a fun fact between you and me, I painted this in 2014. So this is about 6 or 7 years old now at this point. I did not use fixative on this. So if anything, this is a good testament to how long and strong that these colors last. Because you can probably see, I did not hang this in a museum anywhere. This was haunting my studio for many, many years. But as you can see, it is still just as vibrant and beautiful as ever. So that would be a very fun example.
Brett.
Yes.
Kind of getting to the lifespan of the markers, we had a
Yes.
question.
Perfect.
The first question is, can you refill the markers?
Yes, you can. Actually, you know what? As I was going in, I was like, you know what? I'm missing something. And the big thing is that I need to show you some of more of the markers. That way I can show you how they work, because I think that might be actually much more informative to you than showing examples of work. So let's see here.
And the other question, just so you can keep it in mind, is
Yes.
the general lifespan of a marker.
Yes. Oh, yes, the general lifespan of a marker. That is also a great question. So I'll talk about lifespan in all of its iterations and associations. So obviously it is relative to a degree, the lifespan of your markers. However, let's see here. You know what? There we go. So we'll talk about is that the lifespan of a marker definitely depends on what your output is. I have markers that I had started using upwards of 4 or 5 years ago that still have some kick in them. The fact that they are refillable means that the physical lifespan of your markers will last you your entire career if you take good care of them, just like any tool. But I would say, I'm going to use this as an example with an empty. So the lifespan of your marker in terms of if this were filled, it will last quite some time. It all really depends on how much surface you're covering, how much you're wailing away on it. And in this, I'm actually going to take this apart for you and just kind of show you some of the bare bones, because I think it's really fascinating, because it's really easy to do, for one, and then two, you'll see how simple, like how accessible it is. And I can hopefully show you a couple other secret techniques you might not know if you were just using it unassisted. So right off the bat, speaking in terms of longevity, one of the things that I think are the mainstay of this marker design is the nib. As you can see right here, the nib here, I'm just going to remove this for you. The nib design is meant to, it's the most resilient nib I've ever worked with in my 14 plus years operating in a quasi-professional capacity. The reason being is because normally I've worked with paint markers in the past where your nib will get trashed very easily, especially when I use them the way that I do. I use them with mixed media. I will drag them through partially dried acrylic, thinking it's dry, pencil, marker, you name it. I will take these markers to it. These nibs will continue their output, even if they do get a little beat up. They will still function. And as you can probably see, which I haven't pointed out to yet, is that the geniuses over at Molotow, as amazing as they are, made their nibs double-sided. So that way, in case if you're working on one and it gets beat up, you don't throw away the entire marker. You do not want to do that. You can actually take it out and turn it inside out. You say, example, to just really drive this point home. If this gets beat up, take it out, turn it upside down. You've now doubled the lifespan of your nib. Just that simple. Super, super cool. My brain almost exploded when I found that out, because I just found out by myself. So let's go into the meat and potatoes of this as well, is that you see we have the paint holder, which is a great high-grade resilient material. The top, which you can just screw off just as easy. And you can see here, this is part of the delivery system that helps funnel the paint regulates the paint delivery system into the nibs. That way you rarely get overflows. It'll only happen if you're really putting it under some severe stress. And then from here, this part is very porous, and you can actually take this part off. You normally can when you have access to your nails, which I, at the moment, don't, because I decided to wear gloves today, but that is okay. But this piece also comes out, and that piece is pretty much just the piece that helps. It is very tight for a reason, so that way your paint does not leak. And then inside, you can probably hear this. That's all I needed. The roller ball, which just flew across the room. Super fun. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you so much, Josh. Perfect. And that's actually the one I was looking for earlier. So as you can see here, we have the roller ball. Hopefully you can see that. If you want a more closer inspection, definitely let us know in the chat, and I can do a switch down and I can show you a little bit more in detail. But this is the portion that keeps the roller ball intact. There is a spring load in here, which also helps in regulating the mixing ball, and then also once again helps with paint dispersion. And also one of the other great things that I like about these that are blank is that you actually have measurements in here. So if you want to custom build your own colors, like I said, so if you're not a primary colors type of person, if you want to try and mute or kind of make more of a muted tone, if you want to drop down that red a little bit or that cyan, you can do that. You can just fill up to however much you want, and it actually has a fill line, and it breaks everything down by one increments. And yeah, so it's that simple. Just measure, pour, shake up with the cap on. As you can see, and if this were filled with paint, it would still run. So yeah, so that is the Molotow paint marker in a nutshell. And I'll also go right into, why not? If I've shown you an empty one, let me show you a full one and show you how that works. For that one, let's go to the drop down. So, okay. For this one, let's use this as just an example. This is the third example we were working with. As you can see here, I did this using nothing but paint markers. Once again, I'm a big Halloween fan, so as you probably saw in the promo images, this is just a fun little jack-o'-lantern, just cardboard. This is actually the back part of one of our drawing pads that we have. So when you run out of paper in your drawing pad, if you're using a paint marker, you can still use the cover. So really use it for everything it's worth. But yes, as you can see, the light fast, even layering, you can see that layering over the white over the yellow over the blue, it is still opaque. It still shines through. Yeah, still just really beautiful. So from here, let me go ahead and let's use one of my favorites, actually. We're going to use the gold. Is this good to go? It is, which means I'm going to pick another color because I want to show how easy it is to get these things going. So nope, that one's good too. Let's see, red. There we go, red. Red's a fun color. So this one, as you can see, it is currently not charged. It's going to be this simple. And in order to charge this and get it ready to go, is going to be very, very quick. All you need to do is combine two simple actions. You shake to make sure you desediment. Is that a word? Desediment? Break up the liquid acrylic inside. There we go. So this simple. Mixing ball really helps show that the ink is doing its job. And from here, it's going to be a nice, simple press to charge. You can, how you want to charge it, all depends. Some people like to do multiple like this because they're impatient like me. Sometimes you like to hold on to it and keep it down. Either way, you still get there in equal amount of time. As you can see, we are already there. So I'm just going to go ahead and kind of do like a fun little example outline over here. Just that simple. From store-bought to applying in less than 30 seconds. Faster than I can speak, although that's not saying much. I tend to be long-winded, so. But yeah, so that is a very fun, and this is actually one of the 4mm nibs. It's one of our middle range nibs. You get a lot of variety, so it all depends on how heavy your hand is. If you are a fine artist, or if you work with, with brushes in any way, you can still get a lighter application just by kind of using the angles appropriately, and just kind of working with how you want. And if you want to elaborate on your line widths, you can just build up on your lines and you can fill, which is fantastic. I would say, yeah, and that's just that simple. And actually, as you can see, I kind of alluded to it before. We have some examples of the different types of nibs. I said that really loud, didn't I? Hopefully I didn't startle anyone out there. We have our 1mm, which are our fine art ones, which are, you can see I'm a big fan of, because the 1mm is the one that I use to outline this illustration, and that one over there. So it's one of my favorites. I actually use that for a lot. The 2mm and the 4mm, they work really well, really great throughput. You can still get a great variety and application. The 1.5, which is more of like a plastic nib, once again, really great control. And we also have our bigger widths, which are 15mm, and our 4 to 8mm, which are great chisels. They get a wide variety of applications. I would say this one, you get the maximum of like 3, because you can do the bottom, you can do the side, the top, and over to the side. And then we have a very nice fine line one right here, which is fantastic. This one's really like, an illustration grade tool that you can use to, accentuate your drawings if you are a traditional illustrator like myself. Yeah, these are all great examples. So yeah, and some of the nibs that we don't have, that I wasn't able to because it's too big. This is a 60mm from the Masterpiece line. This is heavy duty. I have multiples of these. These are really great. They're great for if you're really great at calligraphy, doing large scale calligraphy. These are fantastic for doing those types of pieces. However, what I actually use these for is that I will fill these with black. And if I have a canvas that is beat up, or I want to just kind of do like a clean sweep, I will just charge this up and I will go over the entire thing, and it will be covered in a matter of minutes. And it will dry. It dries very quickly. The acrylic paint dries very quickly. As a matter of fact, as you saw me apply these, not a bit left. Will not smear. Super nice.
Brett, we have a question
Please.
about someone who does quilting and fiber arts.
Ooh.
And her question is, will the markers bleed or run if you draw on fabric?
That is a great question. I would say I want to be careful and cautious because it all really boils down to the type of fabric that you're working with. For me, if it's of a canvas quality, if it takes ink very well, if it's like a really good mesh quality, I would say it's a really good match. I don't have it on me, but I used to have a black canvas messenger bag that I got at like a secondhand shop forever ago. And I got it like 10 years ago, and I used some blue to kind of sign my initials on it. And it takes a couple layers, but it stays. So if it is comparable to a canvas mesh or a jean or even a t-shirt or like a hat would be great. If we're talking about like a quilt felt, I would say it'd be best to test it out before you kind of run head first into it. Definitely make sure to test it on a sample fabric, on a swatch, just to make sure that it is doing what you want it to do. But generally speaking, I really do not run into bleeding issues with the ink. The liquid acrylic, it really does stay where you put it. The only times where you have like issues with smearing or bleeding or feathering is when you are using it on like a surface or like a piece of paper that might not be bulky enough to kind of absorb it appropriately. So if if you're using like, I was going to say copy paper, but I don't think I've really ever run into that issue with feathering on copy paper. But as much as I want to give you like a hard yes, hard no answer, it really does boil down to to the material itself that you're writing on or you're using. So I would definitely say test run it. I'm 60% confident saying that if it's anything like a canvas, you should be fine, but definitely test run it first before, because that is kind of one of the cool things about, we use it on as many surfaces as possible, but we haven't used them on all the surfaces. We haven't researched all of them. And I think quilting materials is definitely a new frontier that we haven't really seen it branch into yet. But if you do use it, test it, don't use it on any of your prized possessions yet. And then let us know, so that way we can incorporate it, and that way we know next time. But yeah, hopefully that is somewhat helpful to a degree. I know it's kind of a vague half answer, but that's the best answer I would like to give you without causing any harm to your product. That's all. Cool. Were there any other questions, actually, just in case, while we're in it?
Yes, we have another question.
Awesome.
Before she has to leave the video for right now,
Mm.
Are there any media or medium that we should not use the marker with? And any tips on keeping the artwork sealed or preserved?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say, as wet media tends to be a little bit more difficult. Molotow really shines on dry media. Mixed media works really well with acrylic. Oils, I would say things that take a long time to dry or set or cure. Anything that's mushy, anything that anything that doesn't really have like a solid surface, I would say would be kind of like the troublesome surfaces or media that you would want to work with. Like concrete, anything with like a wide tooth. If with the markers specifically, if you have like a concrete material or something like that, I mean, Molotow makes a plethora of materials that do work better with those surfaces. But yeah, I mean, it really does depend, because the one thing that I know about being an artist is that once when you say something can't be done, you either find a way to do it yourself or someone proves you wrong. So so it's kind of difficult for me to definitively say you can use it with this, you can use it with that. But there are what I would say is that there are materials that I would shy away from using. I would say paper mache that's not dry, stuff, watercolor material, oils, like I said, oils would probably be the trickier of the ones. And then to answer the second part of that question for sealing, if you are working with mixed media, the paint markers themselves will last a long time, as shown by the samples that I've kind of thrown in front. But we do have Grumbacher fixative sprays. We also have great sealants and sealer products over at Chartpak that do a great job in making sure that your work is preserved as long as humanly possible. But the one good thing about Molotow is that they really are built to last. They will, if you put them on the right surface, if you treat them right, they will last a phenomenally long time, even untreated. That's not to say that if you want to treat them to just get the maximum amount of longevity, you're more than welcome to do it. And at Chartpak, we have plenty of products to do that. So hopefully that answers. I always like to try and give more specific answers to that, but those are the only examples I can think of. Wet medium, I would say you would run into more issues with. Yeah, so even like with mixed media, as long as everything's dry, you're good to go. Yeah, and peanut butter, never use it with peanut butter. It's just not a great idea. It's too mixed media. Now I'm hungry.
We have another question regarding face painting.
Gotcha. No. One of the things, to harken back to me vaguely talking about my experience as an artist, I'm also a makeup artist of over 15 years. I would definitely say that while Molotow liquid acrylic is non-toxic, I would still say no to using it as makeup. It is definitely meant for art surfaces and multi-surfaces. Porous surfaces, I would like skin, living things that that need things to live. I would strongly advise against. No. Yeah, I would just say no. There are plenty of wonderful products that are designed for the skin. Molotov is not one of them. So yeah, I don't want to be too heavy-handed with it, but yeah, I would say no.
One other question, is there any difference in the two 1 millimeter samples you show on the example chart that you have?
Yeah, definitely. Because there's the 1 millimeter and the 1.5 millimeter. The differences here are that the one of the reasons I do apologize, because I know we're showcasing our products, but I don't have all of them all over the place, because I think if any artist knows, once you get everything out on a table, it becomes mayhem, and it's really difficult to try and keep track of everything. So for the sake of being able to move forward, I wanted to keep it as squeaky clean as possible. But to answer your question, the 1 millimeters, 1.5, they do have different material makeups. So one of them is more of like a hard plastic that has kind of like incisions in the top to kind of help with the liquid acrylic dispersion, and the other one is more a nib akin to the 2 millimeter and 4 millimeter. So those are really the only differences. And then also we have, actually, you know what? Yeah, I'll bring these out. So here we have a bunch of different examples of nibs. Let's go down to the drop down, so that way hopefully I can show these a little bit better. There we go. So we have a bunch of them. And once again, these are not all of them, but these are really good examples, especially of these types of Molotow paint products. And a big thing, like I say, I do dabble in fine art. I really like to drive home the fact that I like these for use in illustrative work and fine art, because they give you a sharpness if you like to juxtapose the softness of your paintings if you are an acrylic artist. So if you like to work in acrylic, and if you have like a nice, if you really like to work in soft backgrounds, but you really like you also like to offset that by juxtaposing it with or juxtapositioning it with more sharp colors and more sharp lines, Molotov will come through for you every day of the week. So the 1 millimeter here, this is the 1 millimeter. I'll see if I can, not to push my luck here and see how far I can go. Hopefully you can see it a little bit, but this is what that looks like. As you can see, this is the same fiber. This is the same fibrous material with a plastic tip for the delivery to really give it that fine art, like a really illustrative, like technical pen level detail. That's one of the 1 millimeters. And that one is called the Special Tech 1 millimeter. And then there's another really good example of this one's actually for a soft brush. This is normally one for the Aqua Twin, which is an aqua, like it's more like a watercolor application system, but it is still a really good example of a thin 2 to 1 millimeter application. Once again, made out of the same porous material, but it comes to a point. So that way, this one you can actually get a little bit more of a brush stroke with it, almost like Sumi style. And here we go. This is the one I was hoping to pull out. This one is this one is called the crossover tip, which is the 1.5, which is this one. You can see here, this is the one that's made out of full, like a plastic material. It has the incisions at the top, still the same delivery system. This one I would say does require a different top. However, with the 1 millimeter, the 2 millimeter, the 4 millimeter, all of these are all interchangeable with each other. It is with these specialty ones, the 1.5 and the 1 millimeter, where you will need to get, you want to make sure that this center part has the proper attachment. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question. I hope. Cool. Yeah, that's partially the other reason why I like having Josh and Pam around, is that if I say something that makes sense to me but makes no sense to anyone else, they can ask me to elaborate and I can get it right on take two. So,
We have another question from Carrie regarding
Oh, wonderful.
Paper.
sure.
Just clarifying, are the markers not meant for paper? Is it?
They're great. They work great for paper. Actually, thank you so much, Carrie, for your question. You're reminding me because I have so much paper on the side that I wanted to show off. They do work very well with paint marker. And actually, as you can see, let me go back to this one. As you can see, this paint markers work really well on this. This is our acrylic paint, our acrylic paper. There we go. 3 times the charm. But this is a fantastic heavy duty paper. So what I was talking about is, it still works with light paper, but if you are working in a fine art capacity and if you want to make sure that the work that you're producing lasts a very long time, you definitely want to put some thought into the type of paper you're using. And because of that, you want to use a heavier weight paper, just because it will react better to the Molotow, because it is a liquid acrylic. It will apply wet and then it will dry. It dries very quickly, but it still goes through that liquid phase, which can affect your paper if your paper is not meant to be, combined with wet media. That's all. So we have plenty of examples. Here we go. It's not my favorite example, but it is an example. This is Bristol Vellum, or is it Bristol Vellum? Yes, it is Bristol Vellum. We have Bristol Smooth and Bristol Vellum, both of which are great. I always just like to make sure I'm calling the right one the right name. That's all. But as you can see here, this is all done with Molotow paint markers. I'm going to do a switch down just that way you can really get a little more details on there. There we go, right here. Oops. Yeah, there we go. And this is just done with paint marker, just as simple. And the Bristol Vellum, I really can't stress enough. It's fantastic. The acrylic, it holds up because it is designed for acrylic medium. So of course it works very well with the Molotow brand. Bristol Smooth and Bristol Vellum and our mixed media papers, they are all fantastic and they work very well with these because they are treated for wet medium. So they get along very nicely. As you can even see here with the Bristol Vellum, I really did charge this up, and you can see that sometimes when you do that, especially for anyone who works in watercolor, the stress inducer that happens when you put on a wash on the paper and the paper warps and it dries. And even though when it dries, it's going to flatten back out again, even when you haven't mounted on the backboard, there's still that little voice. It goes, "Oh, please just go back to normal." You don't get that with these paper if you're using Molotow. If you were to use a lighter paper like copy paper or something else, you might run into that experience. But with these papers that I'm showing you all this work on, it is very reduced, if not non-existent. So yeah, mixed media. I'm a sucker for a paper. In and out pages. Actually, part of me wanted to combine all these, but I want to show off all the different styles. And in and out paper designs, one of my favorites. So just because sometimes you just want to take 3 drawing pads and make one really good drawing pad. Anyone who has a portfolio knows exactly what I'm talking about, I'm sure. But cool. Actually, I'm trying to think, did I burn through all my examples already? But yeah, and actually I have another example. Another very fun example, actually. Oh, and I'm actually going to do a callback because somebody, the person who had asked about refills, refilling these is actually quite easy as well. And Molotow, of course, anticipating, makes fantastic products for you to do that. This is just a refill. As you can see, it is exactly as advertised. It has an applicator, that's simple. And what happens is that when you run out on this one, you disassemble it just as I showed in the very beginning of the demo. And then you just dunk that right in, and just that easy. And you're ready to go. Very, very quick, very, very effortless. And yeah, I love these things. So yeah, so hopefully I've been able to show off a couple different versions. If any fine artists out there have any other questions about like application or what might, if they have any like tips or tricks for me, I can definitely go into that if you'd like. I know we're at 5:43 already. Wow, we really burned through this, huh? Time flies when you're talking incessantly. So, but yeah, hopefully this is helpful to everyone. If you have more questions, please keep them coming. Otherwise, I'll probably just go in, kind of show off a couple more pieces, work on a few things.
Right, we have one more question
Oh.
regarding cleaning.
Yes.
The nibs.
Oh, yes, sure.
The question is how to clean Molotow nibs, and does it involve hand soap? Are there specific cleaning methods that you'd recommend to thoroughly nib clean?
That is a great question. That is a fantastic question. The reason I'm pausing is because I'm trying to think of, because personally speaking, I rarely clean my nibs. Although I would say that if you want to, in order to extend the longevity of your markers, that's a great idea. They tend, like, in order for them to clog on you, you would have to use them and then leave them alone for a very long time. And even then, the acrylic ink will still work for you in that capacity. But I would say you can rinse them with water if you really want to try and work on that. I am pausing because I'm not entirely sure what type of soap you would want to use. Definitely something gentle, only because of the fact that I am not familiar enough with the nib material to know what would affect its composition or what would affect its ability or malleability. I don't think soap would do that, just because the punishment that I throw at it, if soap's going to do it in, I would be flabbergasted. But yeah, I would say, like, you could use like a light dish soap, or like a baby shampoo or something like that. That would definitely, I think that would be functional. Definitely test run it before you do that though, just to be sure, because I would not tell anyone to do something that I would not test out or do myself first. So because I'm speaking in vaguely uncharted territory, I wouldn't want to give you incorrect information. But I would say, I'm confident in saying that if you were to wash them out using water, or if you were using alcohol, maybe like a 50 to 30% alcohol, something that isn't too caustic, that wouldn't corrode the material. Or I think the baby shampoo actually would probably be the safer bet, just because you get the cleanliness, but you also don't have to worry about any caustic effects affecting the makeup of the nibs. So yeah, I would definitely say that would be worth it. Test it on one, and just to see if it works out. The only reason why I hesitate is because the fact that sometimes with nibs, if you run them or if you sink them in other materials, it could affect its throughput in future use. So, which is also why, like, I would say try with water first too. If it doesn't work, then bump it up to a baby shampoo. But yeah, otherwise, I would say that if you're using them frequently, you would not necessarily need to use them. You would not need to wash them. Although, now that I'm thinking about it, it's a pretty good idea. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question to some capacity. I know not fully, but hopefully to a degree. But yeah, and then also another great example, dipstick, or dripstick, I'm sorry. The vehicular motorist in me. The dripstick is a great delivery system as well, where you can write with it, and then it will actually drip for you. Controlled drip. So another really fun application and delivery system from Molotow. So, and I do hope these answers are helpful in some capacity. I really do. So hopefully Carrie has at least a direction to go in, rather than just an answer. So neat.
We have another question from
Hey,
Kelly.
Perfect. Bring him in.
She asks, is it correct that you can do a complete coverage of an area with one application? You would not have the lines, as you would say a Sharpie would create.
Yeah, I would say yes. I would say yes, specifically, depending on, obviously it depends on what type of coverage you're going for. It also depends on what type of marker you're using. the bigger the nib, so if you have a 15 millimeter, I have absolutely done full covers. Actually, the biggest full cover I've done is with the 60 millimeter. Like I said, what I've done with black, I've gone over an entire canvas that was it was 9 inches by, no, I'm sorry. It was 1 foot by 1 foot by 3 feet. So 12 inches by 36 inches. And I covered the entire thing, no streaks whatsoever. And you can achieve a very clean, fluid coverage. It does obviously depend on the surface that you're working with, but I would generally say that if you're working in an artistic capacity on a piece of paper or an artistically focused surface, you can get a full coverage that is very neat and clean, very few streaks if you are using it, if you are with one application. Yeah. Worst case scenario is that if you're using it on like a ceramic or something, you would have to go over it. But even going over it, you would not run into that. It would not be as big of an issue. Actually, let me go through, trying to pull out. Oops, sorry. There we go. Yes. So this isn't greatest example, but because you can see there were some streaks on this. You can see them here specifically, and that is only because of the fact that I went over it multiple times. But otherwise, you can see with orange, I did all this in one full pass through. The green is all one full pass through. The reds and the color here is all one pass through as well. You can see that you can see the marks on here, but that was a deliberate choice on my part. And the best way to kind of maximize that way you don't have to worry about that streaking issue, is to make sure that you really need to really pay attention to your nib and make sure it is charged all the time. So that way you don't worry about getting those textural things. I would say that would be the best bet. So yeah, so I would say a deft hand and a well-attended nib, you will not have to worry about that as much as you would not have to worry about that as much. I will say that. And I do say that from personal experience, but it also depends on the color. As you're aware, brighter colors are harder to hide and make coverage. So if you're using white, or if you're using, a lighter color, they are more susceptible to showing the streakage. Streakage? Yeah, I'll go with that. That's a word. That's a word I made up. But with the darker colors, you can definitely, you can be a little bit more hasty and not have to worry about it popping up. So, but yeah, it really all depends. Yeah. So there we go. And actually, speaking of streaking, I was actually or streakage in that capacity. I figured I would put in a little bit of work on this while we're in the last couple minutes, just to kind of really showcase. I got so carried away talking, I didn't get to painting. So I failed as an artist. I'm sorry. Let's see here. All right, yeah, here we go. So hopefully I can actually kind of literally illustrate what we're talking about here. So as you can see here, we have our nice flamingo. I don't know why, leading up to this, I was like, I want to make a flamingo for this demo. I don't even know why. Couldn't tell you, but I'm glad I did. So let me go ahead and get this started. There we go. Dramatic pause. But yeah, so what I'm going to do right now is that this is one of our more brighter colors, just because I really wanted to kind of actually backtrack to the color availability, because we do have our traditional colors. We have neon fluorescent colors, we have pastels, we have metallics, and yeah, and Molotow is always coming out with new lines and new products and new ways to deliver and new ways to showcase these products, and they are fantastic. So yeah, I cannot sing Molotow's praises enough. I mean, it's kind of like one of the brilliant things about the company is that it literally was made by street artists for street artists, because they made their company being like, here's what we wanted to see in this is what we aren't seeing in the current marketplace, and they made it. So super exciting. But you can see here, I'm just gonna go into this a little bit. As you can see here with this bright pink, I am achieving a pretty decent coverall with minimal streaking. And you get that nice coverage. Now, with a brand new nib, it's kind of harder to maintain just because the nib is so nice. But you can see, if anyone who has a deft illustrator hand knows exactly the type of marks that I'm making. But here's how you can really get some really nice textural applications with this. So, because on the opposite end of avoiding streaking, what you can actually do, which is something that I do a lot, especially if I'm working with materials that I know will have those markings, you either flaunt it or you hide it. Those are like your two tactics. So, in this way, because I couldn't get a full coverage, I really wanted to capture the texture. So I used that to my advantage. So that way, the streaks literally become the three-dimensional elements of this illustration. I'm sure anyone else looking at this drawing is pulling their hair up being like, why did you just use this bright pink on this flamingo? I'm like, have you seen a flamingo? You understand. But once again, it's the same thing where you can build up those streaks and incorporate them. And then other ways, as you probably saw with my other illustrations, is that if you're worried about it streaking, you find ways of either layering over your illustration, or you let the canvas or your like the bottom of your canvas or your surface show through, and that helps it breathe. Tattoo artists, I think, actually, their ears will probably perk up being like, yeah, that's exactly what you do with a tattoo. This is not a tattoo, obviously, but it's the same principle of showing dimension while it's showing dimension by allowing things to breathe instead of going wall to wall coverage and making things flat. So hopefully that's a nice little, like, just kind of random artistic tip and trick, just general. So I know we're in the final 5. I don't know if anyone else has any other questions or comments.
There's another question.
Oh, sweet. I love those.
Kelly, do you need to charge them every time or just in the beginning?
Mm-hmm.
And the second part of the question is best way to store them, on end or on their side for best results?
That is a fantastic, both are fantastic questions. I really thank you for asking, Kelly. Kelly?
Kelly.
Awesome. My last name is Kelly. Good name. So to answer your question is that you can charge them. You don't want to charge them in between every single one. As you can see, ever since I've been charging them, ever since I initially did the initial charge, this has been lasting me a very long time. It also depends on what you want to do and what kind of textures and markings you want to make with your paint marker. But generally speaking, once when they're charged, they will last quite a while, and you will be able to, after prolonged use, you will become very aware of when it's starting to lose its momentum. And like me, I really tend to lean into, I actually really like that middle ground when it's starting to lose its charge, because that's where you get these nice little windows of textural work that you can really kind of pepper into your fine art illustrations. If you're doing more graphic, like, street art, bold, that can be a little bit tricky. You might not want to do that. You might not want to treat them in that route. But if you want to have a more careful, deft hand, then you can charge it and it'll last a little while. It'll dry out. I would say if you're continually marking them up, you got a good couple minutes at least, depending on what you're doing. And as far as storage goes, I typically store them face down, just because that keeps the liquid ink this might even just be my own superstition, but I believe that the gravity brings the ink down. It keeps the nib properly charged, so that way it does not dry out on you. But that's if they're you. If you have not used them yet and the nibs have not been charged, you can, however way you want. It's a-okay. So I would say that, just out of tradition for me, I will store them, if they have been used, I will store them down like this or on their side. I will very rarely store them if they are used. I will never store them this way, just because the gravity will do its job. It will dry out the nib, and then that is kind of where you run into those kind of longevity issues that we were talking about earlier. So I know we got 120 seconds left, 5:58. Well, gee golly gosh, I really hope that this was a fun experience for everyone watching. Thank you for everyone who tuned in live to hang with us. And thank you to anyone who tuned into this after the fact and is watching this right now and made it this far, really. Hopefully this was helpful and educational and informational for you. Hopefully we gave you a bunch of things to think about, to consider when branching out in your artistic journey. And I really hope that if and when you do, Molotow will be here waiting for you, and cannot wait to get these in your hands so you can make some killer artwork. So yeah, thanks once again, a big thanks to Blick Art Materials and Blick Creative Community for letting us host and do this. Had a blast, really enjoyed talking at you, and hopefully you enjoyed me talking at you. So I guess with this, yeah. So yeah, so I figured, yeah, 6 bells, well, at least in Eastern Standard Time. That means it's 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. And that means that is our product demo has commenced. So thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.